Yeah, happy anniversary, Faith Community. It's 18 years. Yeah, give ourselves a hand. 18 years, which means now we have to start acting a little more like adults, I guess. That could be a problem for some of us. I'm saying it, so I don't want to, don't make me. Well, I want to share a short message. This is Anniversary Sunday, which means really the hog roast is the most important thing about today. And the guys have worked hard on it, guys and gals. They've been up since they put it on, I think, 8:45 was the time that they got it on the spit after we wrestled with it. It's a huge hog. Thank you, Charlie, for your contribution and for giving us another great hog. Yes. And we had a couple guys that pulled an all-nighter to make sure that the hog kept turning, and it did. So it is ready for us, and no doubt you can smell it in the air as well as the other dishes that were contributed. But I want to share, this is such an important time because we're in a world where most churches that start in the last quarter century, only a small percentage lasts longer than 5 years. It is hard to start grassroots. It's hard to get going. And once they get past 10 years, then there's a sense of identity and struggling that they need to find as they continue to move. And I think one of the things that has helped Faith Community over the years is that we continue to allow ourselves to be led by God. That we haven't stopped following, we haven't stopped moving. And so I want to share with you just some of the key aspects. We've been doing this series over the last summer, over the last few weeks this summer. But just want to capture a few points and then have our time of rededicating ourselves to the mission and the cause that we're going to focus on for this next anniversary year and where that goes. So this morning I want to introduce you to Seymour. Seymour is this face that's here on the dry erase board. And we've been building this in the series. You've seen different aspects of him come alive. But this again, Seymour is a friend of the board and a friend of the church. And Seymour helps to guide and direct us so that we can continue to make sure that we are embodying who it is that we believe Christ has called us to be. And to remind you, when we talk about who we are, we talk about the Faith Community as a family of disciples that is on a mission from God to love the world. To be a disciple means that we are students. It means that we are following in the way that Jesus has taught us so closely that the idea was that the dust of the rabbi kicks up on us, that we're following him so closely. Paul uses the imagery of mimicking, of imitating Christ so much that we look just like him. And our mission is to love the world, that we see that as central to who God is and what his mission is. And sometimes we get all flowery. In today's world, we just talk about love, and it's this nice flowery language. But to do real love, to do a committed love, means that you're going to enter into dark times and hard times with those that you're loving. And it means to be able to endure the struggle, to endure the differences, to endure the errors and the mistakes that they made, much as Christ modeled for us. And so the model of Seymour that we have been talking about, and that I'm going to reiterate today, what we are seeing more of is a more full way to love others. And that love comes in 5 relationships. And that represents what Seymour is. So I want to go through and highlight what those 5 relationships of love look like. And they're not things that we do. Oftentimes we think about love, we think love as an action. But love is something that God is. It's who he is. In fact, we sing a song. It's about who he is, who you are. Not about us, but about who God is. And so love is a part of being. It's a part of existing. It is who we are. And so this story starts with our logo, which you see up there, but it starts with 3 stories. God's story, our story or my story, and others' story, as you can see. And I'm not going to put it on here, but if you were to put these circles here, that then gives us the basis for how these 3 stories interact and engage in a rhythm of love, so that we see God's love coming through the relationships. And we have to understand that God is relational. If you look at the middle of this, if you look at this aspect here, it is the symbol of the Trinity that is used in the history of the church. And the Trinity represents a communal God, a relational God, because it connects God, Father, Son, and Spirit. So God is relational in and of himself, but he's also relational with us in community. And so these aspects of love are all relational. They are all interconnected. The first aspect that we start with is that of seeker. This outside circle. It is all encompassing of these three stories because in seeking, God is seeking us. We are seeking answers and meaning and purpose in the world. Our souls are searching to make sense of life and relationships and of feelings, both good and bad, pain and joy. Paul caught this when he was speaking to the church on Mars Hill in Acts 17, and he said that God has made us from one blood, every nation in the world, to dwell on the face of this earth, and has determined their times and boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord, and the hope that they may grope for him and find him. Though he is not far from each of us, for in him we live and move and have our being, as also some of your poets have said, for we also are his offspring. So Paul says we are seeking, and he uses this great language of we are groping, as if we are in the dark and we are looking and trying to find our way in a dark room and making sure that we don't stub our toe or run into a wall. And this is how in life we are approaching God, going through life with this groping understanding until we begin to see the light and meaning and purpose fall into place. And so there is a seeking that encompasses the three stories of God's story and our story and others' story. The way that we here at Faith, we embody this and that it is key to our DNA is through being servants. And as servants, we take our story into others' story. To serve others, you have to enter into their realm. You have to enter into their world. You have to enter into whatever it is that their life and their story is demanding. And that requires you to come humbly. You can't come in telling them how you're going to serve. You can't come in with the expectation of let me tell you how you need to be served. You come to them and you say, how is it that I can serve your needs as a servant? Christ displayed this. Christ does not put anything upon us that he himself did not embody. And so he said in Mark 10, verse 44 and 45, whoever wants to be first among you must be the servant of everyone else. For even the Son of Man, referring to himself, came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so we as a church, our faith is based not on how much we know or how well we know it or how well we can declare doctrines or belief systems, but it is how we practice that gift of love by going and humbly serving others so that they may experience a piece of God's love. For he came to serve us first. And as we follow, as we disciple, as we mimic Christ's actions in the world, we realize that the kingdom of God comes when we serve a world whose needs are full and are hungry and are wanting. Once we have served, then we earn this unique place where we have a chance to be mentors. And when we begin to mentor others, it's a point in their story where their story says, I want to bring my story into closer alignment with your story. So in serving, we enter into theirs, and mentoring, they recognize something in us, and they say, I want what you have. That we've displayed some wisdom or some patience or some example or some meaning or some contentment or this fullness of life as Christ promised, that they see in us and they say, my life is void of that, and I see that that makes your life different, fuller, better, more complete, more content, that your relationships are stronger, that your faith is more unwavering. And so as mentors, then we get to speak our story into theirs. Have you ever had someone who tried to speak their story into your life when it wasn't asked for or invited, it's not very pleasant. It's not very welcome. Even regardless of how good their intentions may be, if we don't recognize or invite their story in, we kind of see their attitude as one that is brash or hypocritical or judging, because we weren't welcoming that message. It's actually key to how Jesus ministered. When Jesus sends his disciples out by two, he says, go to the house and offer them peace. What he's talking about is hospitality. And hospitality was key in that culture and in the faith. And hospitality, you were required to welcome the stranger as they arrived, to provide them a comfortable place and a meal. And so he says, go and offer them peace. And if they receive you in, if they are practicing hospitality, if they are practicing the presence of welcoming the stranger, then stay with them. Then if not, then shake the dust from your feet and move on. Jesus gives us a very key principle about his gospel. He is saying that there are some people whose hearts and lives are not ready to hear the message of Christ. And so you go in the spirit of peace, which is of goodness, of seeking goodness for them. But you will know readily and quickly if they are not willing to welcome it in. And if you recognize that, you are okay to shake the dust from your feet and move on. Do not waste any more time. It would be like trying to teach a pig how to dance. You're only going to frustrate it. So move on. So we come as mentors, as people who have gone out in the service of Christ, and as their story is ready, then they return and they come back and they say, I want you to speak wisdom and meaning and purpose into my life. Paul captures this in Philippians 4:9 when he says, the thing which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these you should do, and the God of peace will be with you. And we can only do this, again, when people invite us to speak meaning and purpose and direction. To do otherwise would put a yoke on them which is burdensome, one which they are not ready to hear or to wear. After we have become mentors in them, not even after, but another aspect of our relationship that is key is how we are believers. And John spoke on this a couple of weeks ago. And as believers, we unite together through worship and prayer. And John talks about what worship is. And oftentimes we think of worship as song singing. Worship is so much more than song singing. That the reason that we come together, that we sing songs, we don't do it because, well, that's a churchy thing to do, but to sing a song as a group with one voice, as one body, is to make a declaration or an affirmation as a group of people to say, we believe or hold on to these things. That we believe these things to be true, that we declare them important as part of who God is. And so we sing a song like, Build Your Kingdom Here. We're saying that the church is the key aspect that God uses to work and to speak into his world. And so we're inviting God, use us. Fire us up. Let us change and heal the land around us, because certainly it is sick. And so we're inviting him to use us, to stretch us, to teach us, so that we can learn these things. And this is all-encompassing of life. When we do church, it's the fact that we're coming together as a community who is making this journey together. We are committed to one another to make this journey together, but our worship, our believing exists in our day-to-day life, in the mundane moments of work and family and chores and driving to the store and waiting in checkout lines. That acts of worship can exist there, and that worship is us declaring, living out in ways that declare God's worth. And so when we treat others with the attributes of God, of love, of graciousness, of patience, of long-suffering, of goodness, of mercy, those are acts of worship, because in doing those we declare the heart and the aspect of God. We don't have to raise our hands, we don't have to sing a song, but in being obedient to the way he has taught us, we worship. And this is reciprocal. The relationship between God and us, it goes back and forth. God gives to us so outlandishly and so generously, and we respond with humble gifts that we give back to Him. Paul calls it a living sacrifice. That we're willing to take up our cross and to go. Luke said it, that we must love the Lord your God with all of our heart, and with all of our soul, and with all of our strength, and with all of our minds, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. So all of the love of God is encompassing of everything that we are, our emotions, our thought process, our interactions, and that we understand that that is not solely between me and God, that it isn't cut off there, but that that has to extend to other people. That I can't have my faith and it be just me and God. Because God is not just interested in you and Him for all of eternity. I'm sorry. You're pretty special, but you're not that special. And God desires to be in that relationship with you, but for the sake of others. That we can love God, but that if we do not also love others, then we are certainly not loving God, because God requires that we love others. It's the only way His relationship works. That we love others, that we spend time in community with others, that we bear the burdens, the frustrations, the annoyances, the pet peeves of others, because in that we see now how God generously loves us, despite our faults. And finally, that this is connected through the relationship as friends. That in friends, there is something that is unique. I shared the story of David and Jonathan, of how they were united together in the Old Testament, and that how Samuel, the first book of Samuel, chapter 18, says that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. What a friendship. What a connection. What a commitment. A devotion to one another, that their souls were intertwined. That Jonathan loved and cared and worked as much for his own soul as he did for David's. And we put this in the middle because in seeking we're looking out, but in friendship we're looking in to one another. And so this relationship connects God's story and our story and their story. For Jesus said with His disciples, I no longer call you servants, but I call you my friends. What a powerful statement to be sitting in the Last Supper, to hear Jesus make these proclamations of how He's not going to be with them much longer, and then He turns to them at this very traditional Passover meal that He's done some different nuances and teachings at, where He's just washed their feet, and He sits with them and He says, you are my friends. You're not my disciples. I'm not your master and you are not my servants, but you are my friends. Our souls are knit together. And so Paul gives us this text when we understand the balance of these three relationships of God's story and our story and their story. And we connect this with this idea that God is calling us out into the world. And He says, go and make disciples. We think that that's some overly spiritual thing, but what He is saying is, go and make people who can live in relationship with one another. And Paul captures it in Ephesians 1:18, which is where we get see more from. In Ephesians 1:18, it says that I pray that your mind might see more clearly. I know, it's clever. Incredibly hokey. You're welcome. But I pray that your mind might see more clearly. See what clearly? See that everyone in the world is seeking as God seeks them. See more that we are called to be servants of Christ in the world, not out there of good teachers of doctrine, although that is also important, but we go humbly as servants. That we see more clearly that we need mentors, people who have been matured in the faith or in life, who can speak wisdom and insight to us, understanding that sometimes that wisdom comes from the mouth of babes. Amen? That we see more clearly that we are believers who are called into this unique relationship of God for the sake of others. The church is the only organization, the only group, the only body throughout history that has existed not for the sake of its members, but for the sake of the people who are not members. That all of our resources and our energy should be used for people beyond these walls, beyond this community, because it is in offering that in God's generosity and in His Spirit that they begin to seek the answers that they're looking for. So we are believers called to love one another, that we see clearly that Christ calls us friends because our souls are knitted closely to His. So that our mind might see more clearly, and seeing clearly, we know the hope that God has chosen for us to receive. That we will know that the things God's people will receive are both rich and are glorious. This is who Faith Community is. This is what we invite you to be seekers, to be servants, to be mentors, believers, and friends with the people that you know. That when you embody love in those relationships, that God's gospel message will show up, as it did 2,000 years ago, as Christ embodied this in His own life. So we keep this before us. We keep Seymour before us, so that we may look at this and be reminded that we are called to live and to be and to act and commune in this way. And so as we celebrate 18 years, as we move into this 18th year, as we move into the adulthood of our faith, as Paul said, it's time to put childish things behind me. It's time for me to mature. It's time for me to grow. It's time for me to enter into this partnership and this calling at which God is calling us to. And so here, as always, the last few years of Anniversary Sunday, this will be our declaration for 2016 and 17. Seymour. That represents our logo and our identity and the relationships of love. And so we'll have a song, and I will invite all those who are ready to commit and willing to say, yes, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm stepping out. I need to grow in these areas of my life and my faith, for you to come up and sign this poster that will hang in the gathering space as a reminder that this is our work for 2018. That we may see more clearly the work that God is doing in us and in the world. So John, will you and your band come up and play? And as they play and as you sing, you are invited to come as you feel led. For each person individually. This is not a family event. Parents, I'm not asking you to come up and sign for your kids. If your kids hear this message and they say, no, I want to do that, then they can sign. They're welcome to sign. But don't force them, don't make them, don't coerce them. This is their choice. And as you feel committed to this, please come up and sign and be a part of this mission as we continue to move forward and move out into the community and out into the world that is dark and groping for answers to life. Amen. I'll give you a blessing, but if you did not bring your offerings up, you can do that after the service so that the elders can collect those as we transition into the meal. The meal is already blessed because I know the hands that have sacrificed and committed to it, but I will give it a word of blessing still. So would you please stand so I can bless our meal and then give you a blessing as we go. God, thank you again for your faithfulness to us, and for the redeeming love that brings us out of the gutters that we tend to fall into from time to time and setting us back onto the path of your way of truth and of life. Father, bless this meal as it has already been blessed by loving hands who have prepared and sacrificed to make it for us. Bless the other aspects of the meal that have been offered and given to share as common meal, and be with us as we share in meal and story and in laughter and celebration. May God be with you. Go in God's peace.